Right, welcome everybody. My name's Grant Ritchie. I'm the principal at Dundee Angus Collage, and it's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to introduce this session. And it's great to see so many people here, so many staff, students, and marvellous. I think one of the things that I'm really keen on is kind of innovation in teaching and learning. And one of the things that virtual reality, augmented reality, whatever you want to mixed reality, whatever you want to call it, gives you is that opportunity to innovate. And we're going to hear some examples from people now working in this field in terms of what they are doing with the technology. And really, if you read anything about this, the applications of the technology are endless. And they're endless in a college like this, from people looking at engines, people diagnosing disease. I actually had a go, not long ago, at a kind of virtual welding kit, where you're actually welding two pieces of metal, but all you're doing is sitting with a mask on, actually pretending to do it. And it works, and it mirrors the industrial complex. It's fascinating stuff. And you're going to hear some very different applications of virtual reality today. And there's going to be a great opportunity for you to ask questions at the end as well of our presenters. The presenters are from a kind of wide range of different industry groups that are looking at what the technology can do and where it can take us. So it's all very exciting. Potential is endless. There are retail potential. Can you imagine if you're buying a settee and you can do a kind of virtual reality job to see what the settee looks like in the corner of your room, rather than going to IKEA and staring at it and then bringing it home and thinking that doesn't work. You could actually do all that stuff with virtual reality on a kind of very basic level. But the applications are endless. I've seen examples where people are standing around skeletons discussing them. You can see the whole body. You can see exactly what's there. You can do virtual autopsies. It is just absolutely endless and can probably touch every area that is represented in the room here. So let's crack on. And first of all, you're going to hear from Chris Bradwell, who was a games designer, but is now looking at what virtual reality can do and where it can take us. Chris? Round of applause.
Thank you very much. So, hello. I'm going to share a bit of my story with you and hopefully inspire you and give you something to take away as well. So for me, it actually started long before Live Visualization, which is the company I made 4 years ago now. At the very beginning, I started out actually going to college to do music, and decided I wasn't going to make much of a career doing that. So instead I went down to London to study at a private academy to learn visual effects and games, more the art side of it. And so these were some of the games that I eventually went on to make. The very first one that I made was this one down here, Tycoon City, New York. And I remember being asked back to the place that I'd studied with 11 other people, and was quite excited to be working on an actual commercial game. It was quite surreal. So that came out, and then having moved up to Dundee, and before that I arrived and did a few of these other games. Can you hear me okay? All right. Battlefield 2, I did that down in London. I was modelling some of the weapons for that. And another game I briefly worked on was Crackdown 2, that was here in Dundee. But the most notable one, I think, was Flock, which is up in the middle. Some of you may or may not know about that, but we actually went on to win a BAFTA, Scottish BAFTA, in 2009 now. And that was the first year that they actually put a category for gaming into the BAFTAs. So we were there with Lorraine Kelly, and we're quite pleased to receive this award. I don't know if any of you may or may not know of some of these guys. Some of them are still in Dundee, some of them have moved overseas, but a great bunch of guys to work with. And during that time, I was because I just absolutely loved games technology and being immersed in these worlds and being part of the story that you're actually playing. You're not passively viewing. You're actually actively changing what happens while you're enjoying yourself in this entertainment medium. And I thought it's just far too good to keep within these walls. I thought there's so much more it could be done with it. Not least because I don't know if any of you know that actually the games industry globally generates a lot more money than even the films industry, which means there's a lot of talented people around the world and an awful lot of money that's gone into the technology that goes behind all these games. But I've always been discontent to the extent at which it's remained the domain of entertainment and games when the tools are all there to actually do far more. My first opportunity came to me when I started to hear about the V&A at Dundee. This was 5 years ago now, and I actually decided I'm going to go for it here. I actually made a demonstration using Unity, and I got the architectural drawings, which were freely available online because it was a public competition that went around the world, and made that demo and managed to get in front of them, and they were quite pleased, and they gave me the contract to make the visualization, and I handed in my notice, and that was me. I went away. When it comes to visualization of the V&A at Dundee, it was at a time when I suppose there wasn't perhaps much belief in it. It was right at the start when momentum's still yet to be produced and all the money's still got to be raised. So it was primarily for raising funds. So the fundraising team down there were able to use a vision of the future to get that momentum going. And it helped a lot because they managed to do it. Now that it's actually rising out of the ground down the road there's an awful lot more exposure as people can see it physically, and there's a lot more belief in the project, which is why at the start it was hard to raise 40 million, but now it's overnight it went from 40 to 80 because of the momentum that's gone behind it from the previous years, and everyone who's got on board. It's as much about creating a belief about the future as much as it is visualizing that future. So I want to show you some thoughts about what virtual reality means to me, because when I started doing all of this, there was no such thing as virtual reality headsets. It was definitely all more about just on the PC or the Mac. You sit down and you interface with something. But now that the virtual reality headsets are coming along, it's exciting to see the level of immersion, which is what it is. It's a new interface to what has essentially always been virtual reality, but now we call it virtual reality because there's these physical headsets which we can put on. I hope you can understand my accent. You may be wondering where I'm from. I'm a Yorkshireman. That's why I sound a bit funny and sometimes mumble, I suppose. If you've not already read this, I'm sure you have. What is and what is not VR? There's sometimes a bit of skepticism around virtual reality. I've heard these before. You may have heard them yourself. But here over on the right is really what encompasses what virtual reality is going to contribute to the future when it becomes a common peripheral, because it's so cheap, and it'll be on people's desks alongside a monitor, but it's never going to replace a lot of the way that we do things already. And indeed, it'll probably be a supplement from the perspective of visualization to videos. So they'll always be anchored in a video, I think, but wherever it's needed, there'll be a far more immersive option, exciting option, engaging option to what is already there. It also depends what age you are as to what you think of virtual reality, I think, because if you grew up through the 80s, there was some laughable attempts at virtual reality, quite comical to look on YouTube, actually, and see that they didn't even call them headsets, they called them helmets because they were like this, people moving around. Another thing to consider, if that's all we think of as virtual reality, the headsets, then it's just not the whole picture. It's very exciting right now because there's a lot of buzz around the headsets and these new interfaces that are coming along. But really, you put them on, they're completely black unless someone has created something worth being immersed in. And that's where we come in. That's where we can get involved and actually do something significant. And this is why I'm talking a little more beyond gaming, in fact. And I suppose it's true that youth is the time to experiment with these things, so you may just stick to games if that's what you wanted to do, but there's so much more that you could give to the world if you actually if we use our skills for far more than that. It reminds me of an event I went to just a couple of years ago now in Edinburgh, called Digital Documentation. I don't know if you've heard of this. It was put on by Historic Scotland. Excuse me. This is a screenshot from Assassin's Creed, and I'm sure some of you may even recognise it. There was a speaker there who was the art director, a French guy. It's by Ubisoft. And what I liked to hear him talk about was the power of being part of a story, and this was out long before virtual reality came along as well. And so it really always starts with the content before the headset. And people can get... He was talking about groups of people who didn't even get the game to play the game. They were just exploring this medieval town because they like medieval things. And so this sort of open-world exploratory kind of alternate use for this technology, not just to play a role, but actually just to, out of curiosity, explore new worlds, a bit of escapism, a bit like watching films is, but far more interactively than passively watching. And sometimes you want to do one, and sometimes you want to do the other. I want to try and give a little bit of language around virtual reality that we could use to make sense of what is quite a vast landscape of uses and different bits of hardware tech. Just like music, I suppose. So you pick your you've got your favourite. You might have you might like one more than the other. You have maybe a group of them. You know, you can think about what you actually want to do with this tech. So in any of these, think about how you can solve a problem, how you could express yourself, you could inspire action, you could improve life for some people, experience the past, present or future, and even train and teach, and that's what I'm going to go on with. Oh, briefly. Yeah, one genre is games. Look how many other things you can do with it. An example of historical, in Bannockburn, a few miles down the road, they've got an immersive dome. I don't know if you know about this. So it's got a ring in the middle. And the battle that took place there a few hundred years ago, they've created into this immersive dome. So you're part of the battle and it's all around you. So it's another kind of immersion, but it's not games, you know. Even travel. Thomas Cook, a little while ago, trialled holiday destinations to get people interested or help them decide. They even had an experience, a virtual experience of the inside of their plane, so people could go and choose their seat on there. So learning and remembering, teaching, using it as a training tool. I've tried to make headway in the oil and gas arena for virtual reality, training people in dangerous situations before they're literally in the dangerous situations. So they've got more experience around that time before they actually get to it. Yeah, so what I've got here is the different ways that we all tend to learn, and the further down you go, the more a part of it, and more it becomes a part of you. So you're listening to me right now, but I'm quite a visual person, so I like things like this. But ultimately, doing something is when it becomes a part of you. So virtual reality, being able to, if you design something with virtual reality that people can use to actually become a part of what it is you're letting them experience, then you're likely to influence that person an awful lot more. And some people just need to move to think. If you're one of these people that's on the phone and you have to wander around just to think, or go for a walk to think, you know. So doing things with your hands, it's the kind of guys or girls who just don't read instructions. But you just have to get into something. You never read an instruction manual, you just get into it. Whereas others are far more about reading the instructions. A couple of minutes left here. Some other examples of work that I've been doing. You can see the oil and gas one down here. Building development is kind of what I've opted for. Visualising architecture, because I really adore architecture. That I almost went on to do that, but I didn't, because I went into games instead. So I've kind of come back to it here with being able to visualise architecture, the buildings in which we live, work and play and spend so much time. We go from one building to another. So it's all around us. So when those buildings haven't yet been built, it's a great excuse to use virtual reality to create that future for the sake of selling off plan or raising money, or even just inspiring the wider community. In the example of the V8 Dundee is a perfect example. So that's what I've been doing most of, and some innovation in agriculture. Wherever there's innovation and something doesn't yet exist, and there needs to be money raised, you need to show people it's something that people can latch onto. Some other types of immersion. Do you recognise any of these? I'll start at the top left. YouTube's got 360-degree video now, which means if you're on the YouTube app, you type in YouTube 360 video, if you've not seen this already, and you can look around like this. And of course, the supplement to that is that to be an extra level of immersion, underneath there is the Google glasses, which are really cheap. You slip in your mobile phone and you hit that button, which looks like a pair of glasses down at the bottom right of the YouTube player, and you hit that and you put it on, and you're then looking around. So that's by far the quickest way that people are going to start to pay attention to the potential of virtual reality as a larger audience. HoloLens at the top, that's what Microsoft are doing. Mixture between augmented and virtual reality. This ear down here looks a bit weird. That's not actually, that's for recording stereo audio, but if you've not tried that, go onto YouTube and type it in, put in your headphones and listen to how strange it is that you can tell where things are around you. It's not like 3D stereo in the cinema or anything like that. It's the way that they've recorded it with these two pairs of ears. That's actually mounted on top of a camera. So that's how they do that, and that's quite another interesting level of immersion that could be achieved. And then, of course, being able to solve the problem of how do you walk around in a virtual world. You can get these. There's lots of these. There's all sorts going on. Take a look. An example of how I come along with ideas. I'm rushing along a bit here, going over a bit too much. I was in IKEA on the weekend, and I think about it all the time. Like, how can this improve some situation in which we're all doing? So there's my son running right around these places, but it's a perfect example of why you might want to do virtual reality retail. And down here, they're designing kitchens and CAD. And I'm thinking it's only a matter of time, isn't it, before they have a headset which they pop on and do that. And I wrote this down here to encourage you, if you're quite interested in how you might go about doing this, is that there really is no answer. We're all experimenting and seeing how things can be done better, how it can improve, enhance, like I was saying about what virtual reality can add to the way that we already do things. So don't wait for anyone to tell you, but just try things and experiment and enjoy doing it. And always bear this in mind. You design something with all your heart, but if it's not what the user wants to experience, it always cracks me up, that. So always bear in mind. Put your mind into the shoes of the user, not what you think ought to be done. Just always think of it, swap it over, be in their shoes. And to talk a bit more around purpose or meaning that can be found in virtual reality, besides all the genres that I mentioned. In any of those genres, you can actually change or help someone. Top left is a grandmother who was dying of cancer, but she was quite pleased to be able to experience mobility again. She couldn't move around, and she was in an exotic foreign land, and she could experience walking again, so that was really nice for her. And then this lady down at the bottom is feeling an ultrasound scan, which has been 3D printed, but she is blind. Some things to think about. So going away with that, I think that, you know, I think we're all born to make a difference, and to add something to our world and other people's world before we go. So I think we ought to get out what's in us, and virtual reality may or may not be your interest. It's here to stay, so you can see what you can do with it. Don't be intimidated by it. Jump in feet first and see what happens, and try and make a difference. Thank you.
Chris, and we'll have you back out again later on for the question and answer. That was interesting. Don't wait till somebody tells you what to do. Is that what you said? Is that what the man said? Something like that, you know. So get your thinking caps on, because there's an endless world of possibilities around this stuff, you know.